All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to dig into something pretty fascinating, a take on mental health that feels incredibly modern, but it actually comes from a sermon written almost 100 years ago. And what's wild is it offers this framework that feels like it was practically tailor-made for the anxieties so many of us are dealing with today. So let's just ask the big question right off the bat. Is it harder to be mentally healthy today than it was in the past? I mean, a lot of us feel that way, right? It feels like our era is just uniquely stressful. You've got the constant pressure, the economic stuff, all the digital noise. It's so easy to get completely overwhelmed and end up with burnout and anxiety. But, the author of this piece, Emerson Fosdick, he actually argued that this whole quest for mental health, well, it's a universal human struggle. He makes this great point that every era has its own challenges. Think about it. Back then, you had mysterious plagues and these paralyzing superstitions. In his time, and definitely in ours, it's more about economic breakdowns and deep personal insecurities. The stress is always there, it just changes its shape. Okay, so here is where things get really interesting. Fosdick's first move was just brilliant. He completely reframes the whole conversation. He basically takes the old school language of the pulpit and translates it into the language of psychology, which makes it, instantly accessible to a modern audience. And this simple translation, wow, it is so powerful. Fosdick's argument was this: look, you might just laugh it off if someone calls you a sinner, but what if someone suggested you weren't healthy-minded? That hits different, doesn't it? Suddenly, the goal isn't just about avoiding some kind of moral judgment. It's about actively going after your own mental and emotional well-being. It's a total game changer. And to really drive this point home, he points to the incredible humility of someone like Albert Einstein. For Fosdick, this wasn't just some religious virtue. No, he saw it as a clear, unmistakable sign of a balanced, well-adjusted, and really, a profoundly healthy mind. A mind that gets its place in the bigger picture. All right, so he's reframed the problem. Now what? Well, Fosdick lays out a really practical solution, and he pulls it all from this one single, powerful verse that basically acts as a blueprint for building mental resilience. And he wasn't just looking at this as some nice, comforting phrase you'd see on a poster. Not at all. He saw it as a psychological formula. At the core, you have fear, or basic anxiety, and it's met with three specific, powerful antidotes: power, love, and what he calls a sound mind. So, these three pillars, they actually work together as a system. You've got power, which tackles that feeling of not being enough. Then there's love, which is all about countering the bitterness life can throw at you. And finally, a sound mind, which fights back against that awful feeling that none of this even matters. So, let's break down how each one of these really works. Okay, let's dive into that first pillar, power. What Fosdick is talking about here is a direct confrontation with that crippling feeling of inadequacy. You know that feeling? The sense that we just don't have what it takes to handle whatever life is going to throw at us next? I mean, that idea of just having to be plucky to get through the day, I think a lot of us can relate to that. And when that feeling of just not having enough in the tank gets too overwhelming, our minds, well, they can start playing some pretty unhealthy tricks on us. And all of these things, they're really just symptoms of a mind that feels like its personal resources are running on empty. I mean, whether it's boasting and puffing ourselves up to hide insecurity, or developing a persecution complex where we blame everyone else, or maybe just retreating into daydreams, or even developing actual physical sicknesses, these are all just misguided ways our minds try to escape that feeling of being completely overwhelmed. Okay, so what's the solution? The crucial point here is a mental shift. It's a big one. Fosdick argues that we mistakenly see ourselves as this closed reservoir. Like we have a finite amount of energy and it's eventually going to run out. The healthy idea, he says, is to see ourselves as an open channel, one that's connected to this greater, inexhaustible source of spiritual power. And when you think like that, it gives you the confidence that, yeah, your strength can be renewed. All right, let's move on to that second pillar and see how it builds on the first. This one is love, which Fosdick presents as the perfect antidote to bitterness. Now, let's be super clear on this point, because Fosdick certainly was. This is not about soft, sentimental Hallmark card feelings. Nope. This is about a rugged, tough, undiscourageable goodwill. It's the kind of strength it takes to stay generous and open-hearted when you're facing a life that, let's be honest, often seems deeply unfair. So Fosdick lays this out as a series of really stark opposites. When we hold on to bitterness, whether it's over some personal slight or a huge injustice, it literally imprisons our life. But this active, this undiscourageable goodwill, that's what releases it. Bitterness paralyzes us. It stops us dead in our tracks from moving forward. While this kind of love is what empowers us. It's such a brilliant way to illustrate the core idea, right? This kind of love is anything but passive. It is an active, empowering force. It's what fuels our ability to actually do things, to connect, to act, and to overcome all the stuff that would otherwise make us bitter. And that brings us to the final pillar, the one that really ties everything together, having a sound mind. And what's fascinating is that Fosdick directly connects this ancient term to a really modern psychological concept, the integrated personality. And this whole idea of an integrated mind, it's aimed squarely at what Fosdick saw as the ultimate mental sickness of the modern age. And that is cynicism, futility, that corrosive feeling that life is ultimately meaningless. I mean, this bleak passage from a writer of his time, it just captures that despair perfectly. So what's Fosdick's answer to all that despair? It's integration. He says a healthy, sound mind is one that's been pulled together, unified by a central driving purpose. It's that purpose that saves a mind from being scattered, aimless, and in the end, feeling like nothing matters. So here's the really crucial takeaway. Having a robust, hopeful faith in something, and it doesn't matter if that's a religious creed, a humanitarian mission, or just a personal philosophy, it isn't an escape from reality. Not at all. According to this framework, it's the actual engine you need to overcome cynicism. It's what makes you one of the people who can actually build a better future. And all of this leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This century-old piece is really challenging us to look inward and ask a pretty big question. Whatever you want to call it, faith, philosophy, a mission, what is that one central integrating purpose that pulls your life together and protects your mind from that spirit of fear?